My name is Becca Blackman, and I'm the GIS coordinator here at Island County. I've been here 10 years. I've actually worked in 4 different departments, which helps my coordination efforts. And I'm excited to show you guys our newest map, the IC GeoMap application, which actually utilizes GIS layers from all the different departments to kind of consolidate it for everybody to see it. So last year we were kind of showcasing, we had lots of targeted web maps, and we still have those available. If anybody's familiar with the Parcel Viewer app, you're able to find a parcel, plat, that sort of thing. You can still do that. What I'm going to show you guys today is being able to see all of the GIS data layers on one map. And I'll show you how to get to those targeted maps as well. I'm going to sit down for this just to demo it, but I'll go ahead and I've already opened up the map, but let me kind of go back and show you guys how I got here. So if you go to the Island County webpage and you see this first button down here, Maps, this is all of our mapping resources onto one page. And the link that I'm showing you guys today is this IC GeoMap. The other thing that we'll talk a little bit about today is our open data site, which is this link. So again, it's, go to the Island County homepage and just click on Maps. If you're using your smartphone on this, it's the first button there too, so it's pretty easy to find. So first, our IC GeoMap application. So when you guys turn on this application, you're going to get a home screen, and as somebody had mentioned, down here at the bottom, don't be afraid to push buttons or play around. So I just want to, reiterate that that's how you're going to learn how to use these things, is by just finding them. I'll show you a lot of things, what this can do, but I don't expect you guys to remember all of that. So the first thing we're going to go over is how to find help videos and documentation to show you the things that you'll hopefully remember you thought you might have saw. So kind of what I'm hoping everybody can at least get out of this. So again, this is our home screen. Down here is where you're going to see all the layers. I'm going to just kind of scroll down here so you guys can see just how many layers there are. This is like looking at all of those consolidated maps, all the maps that we have, but this is all of them on here. Now the good thing is you don't have to memorize where everything is. So if I go up here up to the top, I'm going to type parcel, and it's going to show me all the layers that have parcel in the name. So if you have an idea of what you're looking for, if you're looking for zoning, for instance, it'll just take you right there. You click on that, and you can turn it on. So notice this is kind of grayed out and in italics. If I scroll in a little bit, you'll see that the layer can pop in right there. So that's another thing to watch for. So the first thing to kind of show you how to use this map is this search bar. So this search bar will look for a specific parcel. It can look for a road. Let's first type in an address. 6th Street, so that's where we are. And I see that I have one Esri geocoder. This means it's kind of looking at Esri's version of Google Earth. So this isn't necessarily our data, but this is probably going to get us pretty close to where we are. What's Esri? Esri data is just like Google Earth. So Esri is a software that we use to run all of our maps. So it's just like looking at Google Maps, which, like Google Maps, it doesn't get you right there, it gets you awfully close. So that's what's going to happen with there. Let's go ahead and type in Island County. So now I see I've got Esri geocoder, but that's like Google Maps. Google Maps, I don't know if they have a good idea about Island County, but I know parcels do. And now I can see all the parcels that have Island County in the name. I can see all the parks that have Island County in the name. So you can see there's tons of information you can get to just by searching right up here. You can search by a last name, and again, you're going to see there's this roads, I've got address points, parcels. So this is how you can kind of get to a specific parcel. So once I get to one, I'm going to just do one left click. So left click gives me a pop-up, just like every other map we use.
Is that the same on a map?
What's that?
Is that the same on a map?
I believe so. I haven't had anybody ask me questions about a map, so I'm not 100% sure. But that usually means it runs okay. So now I've got this 1 of 2 in my pop-ups. Any layers that I have turned on, I'm gonna get a pop-up for. So because I turned on that zoning layer, I have a pop-up for the zoning layer. And now if I go over here, I have a pop-up for the parcel layer. So here's how I can run a report the easiest way. We'll go ahead and just click Run a Report. It's gonna ask me, do I wanna make a mailing label or actually see a parcel report? And I'm gonna run a parcel report. And this takes it, I don't know, 5 seconds to run or so. I'm on Wi-Fi, so it'll take a little bit slower. But now I can download that report file, open it up, and you guys can see how much information you get out of just running that parcel report. So I have this link will take me to the SmartGov online portal that'll show me if I have as-built on records, that sort of thing. I see all this information from the assessor's office that gives me the site address, the mailing address, the improvement values. I'm gonna go ahead and scroll down. I can see the property use code. I can see if it's within a city limit layer. I can see if it's in a plat and what a plat map would be. And right here I've got my taxing districts. I can see what the taxing districts are. And there's links here that will actually give me more information about what all this is. I have a link that will take me directly to the zoning code for this particular parcel. I can see if it's within the aircraft accident potential. I can see tons of information that's done, that's just by running a report. So again, we've got all of our mapped critical areas. This parcel is going to do what we call an intersect to see if any of those actually cross. And again, I have more information that I can go to that if there is a yes, I can see kind of what does that actually mean. And then there'll be examples of what can help me get through there. So if anybody is, interested in doing their own property, or if you're working with somebody, this is a good way of finding a lot of information that you would need if you were, looking into getting a permit or that sort of thing. If you're looking into purchasing property, this is a good way to get as much information as you can about it. So that was all just by running a report. I'm going to go back here, and let's go back to the layer list. Some of the layers that I wanted to show off was, the basic parcel layer. So again, let's go ahead and click on a parcel. And instead of run a report, I'm going to do view additional details. And now this gives me a ton of information about that parcel, not necessarily in a report, but just in a regular pop-up. There's a link here that will take me to the assessor's office database page. So if you wanted information about, you have a legal description here, depending on what you're looking for, you can see deeds and sales history, tons of information on that page. If I scroll down, I get, again, that mailing address, improvement values, and I have a SmartGov URL. So let's click on a house outside of this. Let's see if we get some information. Turn off my zoning real quick. And let's turn on our city limits. So at the county, we don't have a whole lot of good information about parcels that are in the city as far as permitting and as-built go, because you go to the city for those sorts of things. So I'm gonna find a property that's outside of the city to look at. And I'm gonna select at random. So I hope I don't select anybody's parcel here. It's not the intention. So we've got this one. This just has a house on it. Let's do the view additional details. And now let's look at the SmartGov page. So SmartGov is a database portal that this actually has if there's, they're on-site, if the tanks have been pumped, you can see they're as-built here. And this should be on, most properties have as-builts on record. If we don't, we try to get them on record so that you guys can actually get to all of this. And again, I want to point out, I am here at the county, but I'm using a resource that you guys can use at home. So I haven't had to sign into anything. I'm just using regular Wi-Fi, so everybody can actually do this. So again, lots of information that just stems from using this map. So let's click out of here and look at, another one that comes up is our flats.
Question, why was the blue outline there different from the orange outline? for
Oh,
parcel?
it's just the way that the map highlights a parcel. So it actually is, the parcel line is the orange. It's just selecting it a little bit off.
Okay, so that's not a discrepancy?
No, not a discrepancy. It's just because it's highlighted. This one will show a little bit off too.
You know the degree of accuracy of all these parcel?
Well, we can look that up. So if we're looking at parcels, a way to look up metadata, all of these data layers, in order to be in this map, have to have metadata. And metadata is information about the data. So it's how accurate is the data, how up to date is the data. All of these will have a link here, and I can view the metadata here. So I can expand each of these, but let's go ahead and look at the data quality. So the data were collected using methods that are accurate to 1 meter, 3 feet in most cases. There are some cases that the parcels can be off, as far as like 15 to 20 feet. But for the most part, we actually have a very good parcel layer. I can show you here, over a period of years, 2011 to 2010, our parcels were actually digitally drafted. A lot of other counties have actually scanned in maps and traced them, whereas ours were drafted using actual legal descriptions. So they're really accurate, but it took a very long time. So I'm thankful that that work was done and I could showcase it now, but that was a big process that did that. But again, this is called metadata. It's just information about data. You know, before anybody wants to make a decision, you kind of want to know what's the source of this and that sort of thing. So I got there again by clicking here and then going down to viewing metadata. So I could do the same thing with my roads layer. I could find metadata about that. So these are accurate within 9 feet. But again, this is just information that you guys can get at home, stuff that you want to know, especially if you do start using our open data site and downloading GIS data, you want to know what you're looking at. So before I showed you guys how to search, you can actually just scroll in and out on the map as well. That's just like most maps. I'm just using my scrolling wheel. And in the search bar, we've already shown you can type by name. You can also type in a parcel number. Oops, I gotta make sure my stays there. All right, and again, I have a parcel resort and I have a Esri geocoder result. This isn't an address, so I'm gonna just look at the parcels and click on it. It's gonna take me right there. So really easy to use. This is just searching for parcel.
Is easements one of the data fields?
We have drainage easements, but we don't have utility easements. So a good way of finding easement information about a property is to actually look at the last deed. If it's a warranty deed, you can actually look at the recorder's office files and get the easements that go with it. That's usually what I recommend to folks. And if we can talk afterwards and I'll show you how to search that. Yeah.
When I go online and zoom in and out, it takes a long time for the map to reload every time I zoom. Is that my connection, or is that something I can adjust?
And it's this map that you've done it. I'm not sure if that's your connection or not. It shouldn't take too long to load. If you had a ton of layers turned on, that'd be one thing, but when you open it, it shouldn't take that long.
Like up in our office, we have the 2 computers that are there. One of them is extremely slow compared to the other one just because of the age of the computer. And it does take forever to, if you zoom in, it takes forever for it to realize what you're doing.
Yeah, and I
But
guess
it's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the connection because the computer right next to it is on the same
Okay.
thing, but it's because of the age of the computer.
Okay. And we are looking to hopefully improve our infrastructure to make it even faster. But these should be pretty fast servers, so it just kind of depends. Make sure you're not, if you're using Wi-Fi compared to 4G. I know my phone is really slow, and I just expect that. All right, so this is just searching for things. That's really all that we've kind of gone over. I want to show you guys some of the tools that you can use just looking at the different base maps. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. By default, we're going to have our 2014 aerial turned on. This is actually 3-inch resolution aerial imagery.
Wow.
I do have some newer imagery that's not as clear, but we can go ahead and let's turn on the 2017 so you can kind of see it.
Wow.
So this is at least 2017, but you can actually see a real difference when you turn the two on. We are looking at getting high resolution imagery probably reflown in 2020. So for now, this 2017 is probably the best we're gonna have for that. But this is 12-inch resolution, which is not super low. We've just been kind of spoiled with 3-inch for so long. Some of the other base maps here is this hillshade. So a hillshade is looking at elevation and LiDAR data. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that on. Some interesting places to look at if we go to the kettles. That's always kind of fun. So you can actually see. Now what I can do with this map that I can't do with other maps is I can actually have 2 base maps on at once. So I've got my aerial, and now this is a transparency slider. I can just take that so I can actually see both underneath. You can do the same thing with the topographic base map, which actually has contour lines on it. So all of these, I call them folders. They all have transparency sliders. So that's something that you guys can play with.
Could you show us again where the slider is?
Yeah, it is right here, and that's on all of them. So obviously the outline isn't really showing too much, but if we turn on text code areas and then adjust it, you can see. So when I ran that report, it took a picture of what I was looking at. If I had these different base layers on, and I ran a report again, you'll see that that map is updated. So let's run another personal report.
More than 2 base later?
Yeah, you have to really adjust the transparency. It usually just does good with 2.
When you're looking at a tool like that for a specific spot, how do you get the GPS coordinates on
Okay.
the map?
Sure, I'll show you that. So notice that the map gets updated with the layers that we have. If you were trying to make a map and you wanted to show that it had a stream on it, you should turn on the stream layer and then run a report, and it'll be in your report. So just something to keep in mind. So if we're looking for coordinates, I can click on a location. I just right click and I can see my lat long.
That'd be the coordinate for what's shown on
Yeah, so this is the
Point.
coordinate. And you want to, when you're working with coordinates and web maps, it does get a little bit tricky because coordinates in web maps are in a different projection than when you're at home. So that's something you kind of want to be careful of. When you're at home, your GPS will have something. So we can go ahead and let's look at this. We work in state plane. If you have state plane, you can actually update this here. So for the most part, the coordinates you can get to, but just keep in mind the projections will be different.
What is state plane?
Oh, state plane is, it's a local projection that we don't use for web maps. It's something that, I don't know if surveyors necessarily use it, but all local jurisdictions usually have things in state plane. So if you download our data, you download it in state plane. But when we use a web map, we have to project it to a different projection.
So if
it's
you're
just-
doing a survey tool, you would use the state plane.
Right, yeah, you wouldn't be using the web map data, but when you download data from a web map, it will be in a different projection. When you download from the open data, you don't have to worry about that. So it's a little bit.
Easy explanation for projection.
Yeah, projection, it's.
Does it make sense if you GIS
Yeah,
a lot,
so
but-
a projection is like the earth being round and trying to put it on a piece of paper. How do you want to, something's got to give, right? And so when you have different projections, it's not going to be exactly accurate, but you can do calculations to get where it needs to be. And localized projections are usually the most accurate because they've got, they're only looking at a little point on this big map. And so it's not as big of a deal. Does that make sense? Yeah, they give entire college courses on projections, so
Right,
it's
that's
a
what I was saying.
complicated thing.
And then the XY Down in the bottom right corner of your map. Or, oh, left, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, right. So you can get to it here.
Another quick question. On your GPS coordinates, longitude, do you have the capacity to get Mercator coordinates?
If you were putting Mercator in there, is that what you mean, or on your device?
Rather than having it read out with latitude and longitude, can you have it read out with the Mercator site?
No, it's just gonna do lat and long. So that's what we have to work with. So some of the tools that you can use, this is just looking at the layer list. I'm going to open up my toolbar. And we've got a few tools here. The ones that I want to point out to you is this one that has a little information on it. So I'm going to click that. You can get information by just clicking a point, but you can do that just doing a pop-up, right? But what you can't do is maybe draw a line and get information about everything that line crossed. So whatever layers that I had turned on, I'm going to get information about that. So in this case, I've got 1 road and 13 parcels.
Well, pipelines.
And it'll highlight those parcels. This is also a good way to make that mailing list. So in here, now that I've got 13 parcels highlighted, I'm going to go down to run a report and run mailing labels.
Well, tell
No, this isn't for advertising. This isn't commercial. This is, you have to get a permit and you have to do so many feet and that sort of thing.
Mailing labels
So
for
this is a
everybody.
good way of getting that.
And they all do that. Within your 1 year.
So that's one of the tools that you can use, that you should just get information about all those parcels. You can also, if you wanted to just look at those parcels, I'm gonna switch this to a table, and now I can just kind of, compare those. I can move these fields around if I wanted to. I can export this to an Excel spreadsheet if I wanted to work with that data. Switch to list. Those are some of my other options. Ready? Export to spreadsheet. If you do want to work with GIS data, you can export this to a shapefile, and the shapefile can be read with GIS software. So this is a nice tool that we can work with other agencies, that they can export some information and use that.
So you can export all the data from each of those parcels to an Excel file or a CSV,
Right.
and then you use that in a mail merge. Like I work for local government, so if I wanted to send a letter to everybody who borders our property,
Yep,
I could pull that out of that and then have that populate the letter.
right.
Okay.
So you can create mailing labels doing that, or you can just make the
really
spreadsheet and work with it yourself.
That would have saved me like about 3 hours last week. Just saying.
So I did that by using the information tool. Another thing that you could do is, like I was saying, the 300-foot buffer, I'm gonna go ahead and click on this parcel, view the additional details. Now I've got all that information, but here's the options I wanna look at. I'm gonna show buffer options and do a 300-foot buffer. And now again, it's going to give me that intersect. So I have 28 parcels that need to be notified of some sort of permit that's going on. So lots of ways you can use this. It's going to buffer anything you have turned on. So if you want to buffer a wetland, you can select a wetland and do a 50-foot buffer off that and just see what that buffer looks like. So any layer in here can be buffered and compared with the parcel layer, compared with the road layer, any other layer.
How do you select the wetlands?
Sure. So let's go and find wetland. And we'll turn that on. So I have 2 wetland layers. The first one, this is an Island County wetland layer. The other one is a national wetland layer. So I'll just turn
What are
them
the differences for zoning?
for zoning. I don't know if there's a difference in zoning. I know as far as like the parcel report, if it says wetlands, yes, it's on either of those. So one of them, the IC one, is maintained by our critical area staff when they go out and actually see a wetland. We've been working with them on getting some of those delineations put in. The National Wetland Inventory is created and maintained by, I'm not sure which agency, we can read the metadata and see, but they produce their own inventory that doesn't use local data. So let's scroll out and find a wetland to buffer. There we go, this one. So I'm gonna just click. Remember, I get one of two pop-ups because the other one's a wetland. I'll view the additional details. So now I have this wetland selected. Now I can show my buffer options, and let's just do a 100-foot buffer. And now it's drawn that 100. And it's also intersected that buffer with whatever layers I had turned on. So it found 13 parcels that fell within that buffered area. So again, any of these tools can be used on any of these data layers.
How would you find the area of that wetland?
The size of it?
Square feet.
So if I click on it,
Here's the perimeter.
so this
Perimeter
wetland, I've got the area is 15.7 acres. So I'd have to switch that to square feet. It's a pretty big wetland.
That includes the buffer.
That's not the buffer. The buffer, I don't know if I did the area of the
Well, that's
buffer.
why.
I think I can just draw it. Yeah, I'm not sure. I
But it
did that.
looks like it's picking up the buffer, that's why I'm asking.
Oh, when I select it, so see this one of three, that's selecting the buffer, that's selecting the parcel, and that's selecting, see that,
Yeah.
highlighted, that's just the wetland. So it's not actually doing the buffer too. So this is just attributes within the wetland layer. And that's the information I get about it. So that's using the identify tool. You can also measure distances on this map. So what's different with the distance on this map compared to the ArcGIS Online maps is I can use snapping. So I'm going to go ahead and enable snapping, and I'll snap to the parcel layer. See right here. And what that means is I don't have to worry about zooming as close as I can to it. It's actually stopping right there. So I know I'm getting to that right there. And I can get the distance here. I can change to yards, meters. So that was doing just the distance. I can also do area. And again, when I enable snapping, I don't have to be so concerned about zooming in as close as I can to the map. It's going to just go right there. So kind of a nice tool to use. My printing options are pretty good. I can add notes to a print. I can give it a title.
If you add notes, you have to go into the system.
It'll go into just the print. So it's not going to go anywhere else, but you'll see where it actually shows. So it'll have whatever layers I have turned on, and here's the notes that I would have written. So it's kind of a nice way. I know here at the county, we actually have some departments that use this just for record keeping. That when you're working with a parcel and you actually do have something going on, putting the notes in and then saving that file. So this can be saved as a PDF, or it can be printed, whatever you guys wanted to do.
Is this becoming like Wikipedia where anybody can enter their information?
It's not getting saved anywhere but right here. So whatever notes you put in is only saving to this print layout. It's not saving anywhere on a server.
Right here is just to your computer?
It's just on this one time I hit print. When I try to hit print, it's not going to be there again. So it's not saving anywhere, but it's an interactive thing. Right. Yeah.
Floodplains?
Floodplains, we do. We have some good information on that. So let's.
I'll just put it in, okay.
I'll put in
FEMA, okay, sure.
And in the site review here, we've got our LOMARs and flood zones. So I'm gonna turn off some of these layers we're not using. The site review is a really interesting section. It's got a ton of information, especially about floodplains. This is really the section that our staff use to do a site review. So it has a lot of the information that you'll probably be looking for. So let's scroll out on the map.
Lagoon or Bush Point or any of the low areas?
Okay. I've got my Zoe on.
There it is. Whoops, look at that.
So I've got my flood zones here. Yeah. And you can actually see what zone we have. I don't think I have a whole lot of information on it, but basically just that. Our LOMAR layer, and then our panels, you can click on the panels, new additional details, and actually have a link to that to print. So this goes to the FEMA page. It's a little bit slower than ours, but that will actually give you the whole panel. Anyways, just to show you that you can get to that. We have our LOMARs mapped. Let's see if I can find a LOMAR to show. I think we've got some down here. So notice this little gray area. This has been revised. And so you can see the revision from the LOMAR.
What is LOMAR?
LOMAR is letter of, it's a modified floodplain. I'm trying to think of what the acronym is. I can't off the top of my head. But it's basically, FEMA had their floodplain, and then it came back to get revised. Letter of map revision.
There you go.
Like, I know this. And then there's also
I was like, I think you said it.
a link to a document that goes with that. So this is the actual document of the
30 feet higher
revised
than you.
floodplain.
I wasn't. Go figure.
So tons of floodplain information in the map. And again, I've been utilizing this search to find everything, so you don't have to memorize where everything is because it's, it's kind of crazy how much stuff we have. Those are the ones that I really wanted to show off. Now we can get into query. I'm going to do a quick query, but this is kind of a complicated thing. So before I do that, I really want to show you guys where to find help for all of this. So on this home page, this top link is click here for help videos and documentation. We'll go there, and you can see there's YouTube videos, and there's help documentation. So here's one that just is the user interface. What do all the buttons do? So they're pretty intuitive. We've got basic tools and advanced tools. And I'll show you basic functions to the map. So these are step-by-step instructions on how to use something that we were doing. Measuring distance, querying for information, filtering, running a buffer. So step-by-step instructions, again, on how to do that. Or you can watch the videos. These first two videos kind of basically just walk you through running a report like we've done a couple of times. There's one on here about creating buffers and creating mailing lists. And then this one, this query and filter, because the querying is a little bit complicated, but we'll do it at least once.
Does it list public beach access?
I don't think we have a layer for that. No, we don't. So running the query. So querying is actually finding information within the GIS data layer. So I'm going to choose, let's pick on the parcel layer. We'll do parcels. And now I can actually search through. Remember when we did the view additional details and we have that laundry list of information? I can actually query any of that information. So let's look at GIS acres. And we'll do greater than 40. Search. Now it's going to look in the map and find every parcel that has GIS acres greater than 40. So
What's
it's
GIS stand for?
Geographic Information Systems. Mhm. So any of those, you could actually, like I said, query the data. You could do the same thing with filtering. So the difference between querying and filtering is when you query, you can then, like we've done before, export this to a shapefile or a spreadsheet, whereas filtering is just going to turn it off in the map. So let's go here, we'll cancel that. And now let's do a filter of the same thing. So let's zoom in some. And I'll do parcels. Again, we're at GIS acres 40. filter. And now you can see everything else is turned off the map. So it's just different ways of kind of using the map to do some analysis for you. So those are kind of the, the big ways of using the tools. Remember, we had a lot of information you could find by looking at the metadata. Just here you can toggle labels on and off with the layers. All sorts of stuff that you guys can use. Using the search engine here to type in a last name or a parcel number or a road, all sorts of things will get you to find that. So we did already go over running the report and making address labels. I wanted to show you guys our open data site and just kind of go over that briefly. So we're going to go back to the mapping center. And now we'll go to GIS data. So this is for folks who actually want to acquire GIS data. So you can kind of explore the categories and see what we have for each. This is a way that you can actually just look at the data before you download it. Zoom in on the map. So this is my plat layer. And you can see the plats are going to be showing up. And all I have to do is go download, and I can either download a shapefile or a KML file, which is Google Earth. I can do
What's a shapefile?
a shapefile is, it's kind of like a 90s GIS technology. So it actually works well with CAD. So it depends on what you're using. File geodatabase is a little bit more complicated because you can add rules to things. You can, when you create something, you can put in drop-down menus. You can't do that with a shapefile. But a shapefile really does talk easily with other databases. So depending on what you want to use it for. Notice I have this option for filtered data set. Because I zoomed in on the map, I would only actually receive the data that I wanted. So it's a couple different ways that you can use this. Another thing I wanted to show is for the plats layer, we click this view metadata. And it's going to show me a little bit of description about it, but what I want to look at again is this full metadata sheet. So you can get information about the plat layer before you download it. And that's just the plats layer. Again, we have a ton of data in here. Let's go back to the main page. So I explored the property data. If I go to all available layers, you can see all the GIS data that we have available to download. So tons of data. So using ICGeoMap is a great tool for viewing data, but if you require using shapefiles or that sort of thing, you can actually download the data yourself and work with it. And if you scroll further down, you'll see there's additional links. We have a link that goes to our Island County web portal, a link to the ICGeoMap, and then down here are other open data GIS resources. So we've tried to make it easy for you if you're working with other state data, that you can actually use this page to get to the other state's data as well. We've got data layers for Washington DNR you can get here. This Washington Geospatial Open Data Site has links to even more open data sites. So it's always been something that, it's great you can find Island County data, but if you require nearby jurisdictions having to weed through other websites, we're trying to make it as easy as we can to do that sort of thing.
Are you going to talk about ArcGIS?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to talk about ARC, GIS? The bottom one on the
Bottom right.
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a page that kind of just talks about what open data is. And it's basically just downloading data. This is a page from Esri. And it talks you through how to use the open data site. So it's kind of up to you guys, but it's just one of the other links that we want you guys to be familiar with. But this isn't necessarily all of our data is going to be in these categories. You can also search for the data up here, and it'll find anything with parcels in it. So you don't have to know which category it's in necessarily. But it's a nice tool that we've got for downloading our data. This is updated nightly. So our last data downloads page, we weren't able to do that. This is updated nightly along with everything in ICGeoMap. So the same data that you see in ICGeoMap, you will see this every single day. Disclaimers. So yeah, that's using the resources that we have. And again, getting to the help documentation, because I know I just breeze through everything because I use this all the time and this is my job. I know this isn't necessarily your job, so I don't expect everybody to remember things. But just know that you can get to links here. You can get to those help documentation pages, and you can get to the mapping center here. So tons of information to kind of get you back to using our resources. And that open data site, you know, like ICGeoMap, has data layers from across the county. It's not just Public Works, it's not just the planning layers, it's all of our data. So does anybody have any more questions?
What are interactive maps?
Well, the interactive maps we still have available. These are like the Parcel Viewer app, and we're actually going to have them available on some of the computers around the room to kind of play with. So this is using those same data layers. This is just easier to work with because it has less on it. So this one, for instance, is the Parcel Viewer. So you also have parcel layer, but if we look at the layer list, you'll see you've got parcels, tideland only parcels, plats, city limits, quarter sections, that's it. Whereas ICGeoMap has over 100. So, but we still have these. If all, you know, I even tell staff if all you're looking for is a parcel or a plat, then sure, you can still use these.
Yeah.
This doesn't run
It's
reports.
syncing in
So a lot of that functionality, when you do the measuring tool, it's not going to snap to the parcel edges like ICGeoMap will. So a lot of functionality that comes with it.
Is this program only used by Island County, or are there other counties that use this as well within the state?
That use this, like this sort of platform. So there's, the ICGeoMap we have is actually a third-party software that we've configured for Island County.
So
City
it's
of Bellingham
customized.
does, what's that?
It's customized.
Yeah, and City of Bellingham has used that. This is ArcGIS Online. A lot of jurisdictions use ArcGIS Online because we use our data within ArcGIS. It's just kind of another platform. I know Pierce County doesn't use GeoCortex. They do everything using ArcGIS Online. I think Skagit has some. So I don't know. I think they have for ArcGIS Online though, but they also have Arc IMS. So everybody kind of has a little bit different systems.
Can you find critical area reports that might be associated with a wetland, for instance?
Yeah, so if we, let's see, if we go back to.
I was gonna ask you on that page, where is the legend for what the red lines are versus the yellow lines?
Legend right here.
Okay, all right.
Let's go to ICGeoMap. So on anything, when you run that report, it's gonna find if there's a wetland on it. So let's go where we know there's a wetland. Right here. Run a report. And this is using our mapped wetlands. You can see possible streams, yes, possible wetlands, yes, steep slopes. It runs through all of those layers. Does that answer your question?
But I'm thinking of a critical area report that might have been submitted for a land use application.
Oh, like a specific report? We don't have that. So we're working with planning staff to actually put that information, like the actual shape of the wetland, the delineation, into the GIS, so you would see updates to the data, but I don't think you would actually see the reports.
With the current assessor's website, you have to agree to not do certain things in order to get on. Do you have to do the same thing to get on the GIS?
When you get here, we have our disclaimers up on the mapping center, but we don't have an I agree sort of thing. So we have our data disclaimers and mapping disclaimers, but there isn't an I agree screenshot. Some of the interactive maps do have those. We have a sheriff's office crime viewer map, and that does have something that you have to check the box to get to. And I think there might be a planning map to do that.
That one you have to too. That one you have to too.
Okay.
The parcel interactive one. That's the one I use all the time.
Yeah, that's the splash screen.
Oh, crime viewer app? Yeah. So all of our interactive maps, got too many pages. So you can explore all of these maps. We have a sheriff's office incident viewer map That's kind of what I was chatting about. We've got critical areas interactive maps. So all of these maps are really like, you know, a portion of ICGeoMap, the layers that are in it, for more of a targeted experience. So they are easier to work with, but if you do require knowing all those, it's sometimes easier to use one map rather than go to all 5. You know what I mean?
When Washington sold off the tidelands along the edges so that individuals could buy the tidelands, some properties they own to the median high tide, some properties they own to the median low tide, and some properties own the full tidelands. Is there any way to determine for a particular parcel what the tideland status is in terms of what is part of that parcel?
Not that specifically. No. So
Comment?
even title don't want to ensure titles on tides.
Comment?
Yeah.
If you take the parcel and bridge over to the document site for scanned documents, often you can get a deed description that will have the tideland ownership designation.
You can get part of the way, but you know, even title companies won't insure if there's tides or not. It's that complicated of trying to look back at history with when it got sold. Did it get sold with the tidelands? Did it not? It turns into this. So if you need to know absolutely, I'm not sure who you would go to because, like I said, even title companies. You can use the maps to see what the legal description says, but you do have to walk it through the transfers of titles to try to see if it ever got dropped, that sort of thing. So that's why it's such a complicated one. Right, and then it turns into that sort of thing. So we don't have anything that I would feel that confident about. Especially if title companies won't insure it. The mapping's definitely not that up.
Sure.
Can you talk about back on the property report where there's the field on archaeology
Sure.
being proximate and what that represents?
Okay.
And doesn't represent?
Let's see if I've got one up still. I do. Okay, so if we scroll down here, I have a vicinity of cultural resources no. So basically, we have, this is either a yes or no of if it's within a buffered area of a known ARC site. So we're unable to show ARC sites because of confidential reasons, but we can show you if it is within a buffered area of that.
What is the buffer?
What was that?
What is the buffer area?
Oh, you know, it's pretty large. I want to say it's 600 feet. It's something to that extent.
It could be as high as 1,000,
Yeah,
depending on what the site is.
and that's their data, their buffers.
Yep.
So I was happy we could put that on.
Department of.
Yeah, they were, you know, that was when we had pushed. We can't put on some of the Washington Fish and Wildlife. They wouldn't let us put yes or no. So you do still need to contact planning for some of those things. Like eagles, we weren't able to put those yes or no on. But we put, you know, we contacted them to see how much we could put on, just to, you know, make it as easy as we can for everybody. Otherwise, you do have to come into the office. You do have to talk to somebody. We want you guys to be able to take it as much as you can when you're looking for it. Does anybody else have any more questions?
Can you access like population densities?
I don't have census data on here.
Okay.
So, yeah, you'd have to, the census actually though, if you go to their website, they have a really great interactive tool that shows you the population densities.
Okay.
Which site is that?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. We could probably find it pretty easy.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Right around here. But they have some pretty great tools to work with.
What's the best way to make the trails map available to people on their smartphones?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. So we've got Joel in the back, and Joel's going to be helping folks. We've been using, and we actually give our data to Abenza PDF Maps, which is a free app that you can download on your smartphone. What that does is any map that's in a PDF format, it's really easy for us GIS folks to export that with what we call geo-referenced information. That means it can show you using GPS where you're at on that map. So I recommend folks actually use our PDF maps. We've got Saratoga, Putney, Kettles. If you look at the Avenza PDF maps, and there's a handout in the back near Joel, we've been putting QR codes near trailheads. So if you already have the app, you can scan it. But you can also go to the map store, and you can download all of our maps for free that way.
What is the name, spell this app's name?
Avenza, A-V-E-N, Avenza, Z-A.
Yeah, it's all back here if you want to
Yeah,
come
there's
after
more
the.
information in the back about it.
So I downloaded your GIS information, KML, exported it to Google Earth, basically. And I had problems with that, with file sizes and whatever.
Okay.
And then making it available through that, so people don't have to go to individual maps, they can zoom in or out, go to
To see the one.
Does that make sense, or is there a better way?
If you're making like your own maps, or
I'm just using your data.
you're just using this data, well, we have a, let's go back to this guy. We have a Park Finder app that already has that on it. So this has all the trails on it, and this is a good tool that you can use as well. So if I scroll in, right here, this has this My Location. All of those interactive maps have this button. That's so that you can use the GPS to show you where you're at on the map,
Okay.
and you can get all the trails here. And this works great, but know that you do have to have connectivity to use it. So that's where the PDF maps come in. You know, if you're trying to hike the pedals, you're gonna run out of connections.
Okay.
Is there someone here who's working specifically with pedestrian safety?
Working with pedestrian safety, we've got Ryan will be here. So we'll have to go, is he just here?
I saw him walk by.
I know he was here. So we'll get Brian here. Brian's our transportation planner, and he would love to talk with you. Brian is really tall. You can't miss him. He'll be near the back.
Biking available there, what's that all about?
This is where you can actually search all the parks where we have attributes that say where these are. So if I do biking available, hit apply, it's going to show me all of the parks that have some bike trails in them. So yeah, it's kind of a nice tool to, or a nice map to work with. But I would recommend using it before you leave too far, because
5 hours ago, at one of your
oh
office members.
No, all of these edits, that just says that because I updated with a script all the data. So that's not necessarily true. But that does mean we're editing the data, right? Right. Well, I'm gonna open,
Where does one get to the old assessor's maps? I know they're in there somewhere and I've not been able to find them.
Let's see, so, you mean like the Mylar scans? So, okay, I think we have it here. Let me double check. I know if you check out, there's a poster over there. Scott, who's the new assessor's office GIS administrator, is actually working on updating quarter section maps with Mylar scans in the background. So it's a new product that's supposed to be out next year, and I think it would be really beneficial. But let's see if
There
I
is a way in there somewhere to find those, and I haven't found
I
it.
think I have it in ICGeo map. But off the top of my head, I'm not sure. Because I know you can get to the PDF map, and I think you can get to that scan, but let's look real quick. So that would be my quarter section layer. Go ahead and click on one. Here we go. Scan 2005 Mylar image. So that's how you could get to the old Mylar maps.
And I have no idea where you went.
Sure. So in ICGeo map, I made sure I turned on the quarter section layer. And then it's going to be in your pop-up.
Under what?
Quarter sections, and now if I do a left click to get the pop-ups, I see scan 2005 Mylar image.
Okay.
So, but like I said, he's working on a new project that the PDF maps that get updated more often will actually have those in the background, so
In
it's
a
kind
year
of
and a
a.
half.
Well, 2019 isn't that far away anymore, but he's working really good on it. It's a complicated thing to actually scan all those, and then he needs to georeference them and pin them everywhere, so. But it's turning really good. So I'm gonna be here up at the top of the room still. Ryan just came in and he's leaning and he's still as tall as we all are. So that's the tall guy, Ryan. He's our transportation planner. Heather is, she just ducked, but Heather is in public health. She's actually gonna be over there near the public health ArcGIS online maps. And Joel is in the back. Joel's with IT. He's gonna help folks if you wanna download and check out the events and PDF maps and see what we have available. There's events that have QR codes you can scan. But I kind of want to open up so you guys can explore the room, grab some of our swag, the magnets, we've got water, cookies, and like I said, I'll be up here to answer your questions. I'll probably have ice cream. Thank you guys.